Hey, Chris Baker here again. To celebrate the release of Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought it'd be cool to go back and do a little homecoming of my own. Before I spent 7 years of my career working on Marvel video games, I spent about 5 years working as an editor on the official US PlayStation magazine, where I reviewed more than 200 video games, 4 of which were Spider-Man games. The first one of those was actually one of my favorite Spider-Man games of all time, Spider-Man, released by Activision and developed by Neversoft. I just opened up the October 2000 issue of official PlayStation magazine, which has my review on page 138. This may be the first time I've read it in about 17 years. I just hope it doesn't suck. And if I see things that do suck, I'm going to call myself out on it. Okay, here goes. Superheroes and good PlayStation games. Two things that just don't seem to go together well. Outside of the occasional fighting game in which we somehow actually see brawls between good guys like Captain America and Iron Man as making sense. Holy crap, I just called Civil War in 2000. Did Mark Miller read my review and then decide to write a comic book about it? I think so. Wow. Anyway, outside of occasional fighting games, blah blah blah, the best action titles starring spandex crusaders have included The Fantastic Four, The Incredible Hulk, Spawn, and Batman and Robin. Enough said. Not a bad intro, little 23-year-old me. Good job. Let's keep going. Spider-Man epitomizes everything that superhero games of the past have aimed at being, yet have failed at miserably. Just as the classic song goes, as heard in the highly danceable remake included in the game, the wall crawler truly can do whatever a spider can. Any major power of his depicted in the classic comic book series comes to life, whenever you choose to use it. Well, that's a bit of an overstatement, but he did do a lot of things. Okay, keep going. Crawling on walls, slinging from building to building, picking up heavy objects to throw at enemies, using web fluid in creative ways for both weaponry and defense, you name it. As if the exhilaration of fighting crime like this weren't enough, especially the web slinging. Man, it rocks. Just for some added perspective here, there really wasn't anything quite like the web slinging in this game. I know that games like Spider-Man 2 would come along and definitely evolve the web slinging, but we didn't have anything like this before that, so yeah, it really did rock. The action varies itself to such a degree so as never to seem repetitive. In one level, you'll be beating up bad guys left and right, while the next might have you solving a puzzle or escaping from arachnophobic enemies. You'll even do the chasing yourself a few times. Boss battles continue the variety, most of the often creative skirmishes, see sidebar for best example, requiring several attempts to master. Okay, I've convinced myself that there is actually a nice variety of stuff here. Good job, me. We'll get to that sidebar in a bit. Furthering Spider-Man's greatness, the game's action fits in perfectly with a story that anyone from the most casual Spider fan to staunchest of fanboys will enjoy. And its interesting premise and frequent laugh-out-loud humor, the web-slinger's tale of heroism perfectly captures the spirit of the comic created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko nearly 40 years ago. Comic book readers should also appreciate the numerous references to the Marvel Universe, ranging from encounters with beloved characters to billboards in the background advertising characters' television appearances. Aesthetically, the game performs as well as any other out there on the PS these days. Our webbed hero looks fantastic as he dukes it out with arch rivals like Venom, Dr. Octopus, and Carnage. Adding to the experience, old Webhead doesn't exactly keep his mouth shut while beating the crap out of an enemy, just like the comic. He also tends to utter phrases you often feel yourself. On more than one occasion, I actually found myself saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," right along with Mr. Parker. That is very true. I do remember that happening, and that kind of freaked me out, actually. If anything holds back Spider-Man from perfection, it's the occasional spotty controls and camera issues common in 3D action games, at times bad enough to cost you a life. That I do remember, and I do remember that causing me a lot of problems in the last level of the game. Some might also frown upon the mere 6 to 8 hours it takes to beat the game. But when it's all said and done, Spider-Man is still the best superhero game of all time. That's definitely one of the most definitive statements I ever made in a review in my 5 years at OPM, and I actually do stand by it because through 2000, there's really no doubt in my mind that Spider-Man was the best superhero game. There have been better ones since, the Arkham games, some of the other Spider-Man games, but this one's still way up there to me. Oh wait, there was more to that sentence. Spider-Man is still the best superhero game of all time, maybe even the best action game of the PlayStation era, period. Okay, that's That's probably a bit too bold. You fanboyed out a bit there too much, 23-year-old Chris. You'll find yourself booting it up multiple times after beating it, not only to access the better costumes or to find all of the comics, though that's certainly reason enough, see sidebar, but also just because it's so much fun. That's true, I don't typically replay games a lot, at least not since like the Genesis era, but at the same time I did go back and play this several times, although it probably was all in the year 2000, maybe a little bit into 2001. Even after playing it twice now, I find myself facing some serious Spidey withdrawal after only a day or two, something I haven't felt about a video game in a long time. If Spider-Man doesn't make a true believer out of you, then nothing else will. So that might be a little hyperbole there too, but at the same time, you know, there wasn't a whole lot outside of comics and cartoons to really excite us about Spider-Man. Remember, movies were still a couple years off. I'm not even sure I knew about the Tobey Maguire movie yet. So if gaming was one of your biggest hobbies like it was mine, maybe this was a gateway into Spider-Man for a lot of people. Let me know in the comments if you played this Spider-Man game and it made you a fan. I'd like to know. Alright, let's check out the sidebars now. There's two of them. Replayability Galore. As if Spider-Man didn't already score highly enough in the fun factor department to keep playing even after you've beaten it, and it certainly does, Neversoft has provided several reasons for you to come back. For one thing, the game features many hidden areas with comic book icons just waiting to be picked up. Collecting these provides a great way to learn more about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, as each tells the story of a major event in the web-slinger's life. Collect all 32 of them, and you'll earn one of the 8 additional costumes, another cool thing to seek after you've played through. I won't spoil it by telling you what they are, well except for the super sleek black symbiote costume you see to the right, but you probably could have guessed that one anyway. But several of the new duds grant the wall crawler not only a suave new look, but also extra powers. And if that's not enough reason to have you coming back, even some of the training modes, especially the ultra cool Zipline training, can keep you busy for hours in that classic arcadey way. It'll definitely tingle all of those spider senses. That was a pretty good sidebar, but I've got to ask myself why I didn't even talk about What If mode. What If mode, I actually remember this, was a whole other mode that granted other kind of scenarios that kept the replayability going. Why didn't I mention that? Well, I guess there's only so much space in a print review. Okay, I have not read this other sidebar yet, but I think it might be the one thing in this review I'd most like to take back. I called it the perfect boss fight. In all my years playing action games, rarely have I actually stated out loud, "This is so cool." But the second encounter with Venom in Spider-Man did prompt me to utter such a phrase. Set in a very large square room, Spidey must best his arch-rival, who appears and disappears at will. But there's more. Venom is likely to reappear at one of the area's 4 switches, each of which unleashes a flow of water that can drown the wall crawler's wife, Mary Jane, who dangles from a chain. So in addition to watching out for Venom, you also must keep tabs on the switches before your favorite supermodel meets a watery grave. This is what action gaming is all about. That actually isn't nearly as fanboyish as I remember it being, but perfect boss fight? Probably not. If it actually were a perfect Venom fight, then it would have had to have included taking him out with sound or fire, because those are his weaknesses, not just punching him a lot. Oh, I forgot to mention, 5 out of 5 was my review score for this game. I remember all the guys at EGM down the hall giving it like 7.5, maybe somebody gave it an 8, but I just really loved it. It was the first time I ever gave a game a 5 out of 5, and it was one of the only times I ever gave a game a 5 out of 5. I gave Devil May Cry that score. There might have been another one or two that I can't think of right now, but wow, I did really love this game, and I kind of want to go play it again right now. One other kind of dubiously fun note, I guess. Activision apparently really liked my quote that it was the best superhero game ever made, and they put it in all their ads for the game, so if you ever see that ad in an old magazine, it was me. Anyway, what did you think about Spider-Man from Neversoft? Leave me some comments, and maybe we can do something else about it later. In the meantime, just check out the links you see here, and I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye, everybody.